Happy New Year to everybody. Halfway through January already, unbelievable. Right, today's podcast, I'm going to be talking about the world of AI, better known as artificial intelligence. What I'm going to do is review various comments that I've picked up on this particular area, and so it's not just me making my own statements. These will be factual statements of what I call the movers and the shakers within this area of expertise. And then as we go along, I will be adding my own comments and interpretations on what is actually being said. Let's have a look at what the official definition of AI, artificial intelligence, is. So I'm going to read this out and then I'll try and make some sense of it from a layman's point of view. So we got here, artificial intelligence, AI, is technology enabling computer systems to perform tasks needing human intelligence, like learning, problem solving, understanding, language, and visual perception, by processing data, recognizing patterns, and making decisions or predictions, essentially mimicking cognitive functions to automate complex jobs. So that's a bit long-winded. So let's boil that down in layman's terms. We've basically arrived at the situation where we now have computer technology that can take on many of the ordinary, unskilled, even skilled jobs out there. And ultimately, well, the other point I should make is these new AI computers, software programs, they can outperform humans, and significantly, they can perform these tasks in unbelievable timescales, a lot less time than it would take a human being. I'll give you an example. The other day I was watching a program on TV and there was a brilliant line that was delivered by one of the actors, and I thought, well, where did that come from? So I went to Chat GPT, put in there, where did this line come from? And within a nanosecond, it told me the source of the line, the program, all the details you could want in a nanosecond. Compare that with how we humans actually operate. That being the case, we'll get the cynics who'll say, oh, you're like the old Luddites who rebelled against equipment coming in to make them redundant from their jobs that they were doing at the time. This is fundamentally different, the realms that we're now moving into, because with AI, we now are at the situation whereby computers, software can now perform human tasks, and it's at the stage where it's actually able to perform its own independent thinking. Once that is developed to the nth degree, we move beyond AI and we move into super AI, which is the case scenario of where basically computer technology has taken over completely. It will be able to self-program. It will be able to think in terms of how a computer software might think, and it can completely outperform humans, making us basically redundant. So that's just a quick overview of what is happening, what it is. But let's look at the movers and shakers and different institutes and see what they've said about AI. And then I'll try and put my own comments in there and interpretations. That being so, AI godfather is acknowledged as Geoffrey Hinton, who is the Nobel Prize winner at Toronto University. And just to quote him, even he is in shock at the rapid advancement of AI, and he's the godfather of this. So just to quote him, we're going to see it having the capabilities to replace many, many jobs. AI will replace human professional coders. So we have Geoffrey Hinton, Nobel Prize winner, don't forget that, stating we're going to see it having the capabilities to replace many, many jobs. AI will replace human professional coders. So that gives you an idea of what is coming down the line. And then we have another person, another mover and shaker, director Adam Dorr of Rethink X, quoted in The Guardian, July 2025, stating, "There will be a niche for human labour in some domains, but the problem is," listen to this, "there are nowhere near enough of these occupations to employ the 4 billion people who globally will be rendered redundant by AI." That is pretty terrifying when you consider that the global population is something like 9 billion. But I'll go into these figures and how that's going to impact the UK in a moment. So that's 2 key people there, their thoughts on what is actually going on, what's coming down the line. AI impact, again, I'm quoting various sources here. The general scenario is we're told there will be 2 phases that will impact jobs. The first phase will be job losses accounting for 11% of tasks. That's the initial first phase. Subsequent to that, the second phase kicks in, and this is terrifying if this is going to pan out as they say. Second phase, that may increase to 59% of tasks being impacted, and particularly high earning jobs. So it looks like initially it's going to be the low skilled jobs that will be hit, and then we're going to be moving on to the middle earners. But again, I'm going to focus on that in a moment. About 65% of skills needed for existing jobs may change by 2030, requiring new skills. The point to make there is technology today, AI, is developing at such a rapid pace, and we're being told here, I'm picking up the story of the key to success to employment is reskilling, but the pace of development is so fast that we're getting to the ridiculous scenario whereby people out there are basically going to have to be reskilling every couple of months, which is just unbelievable, because all of us have got our own character, personality, skill set, things that we're naturally good at. This could start pushing into the realms of where we're not particularly good at those new skills. And this is where the problem comes in. How often, how frequent are people supposed to reskill just to stay in a job? So that looks pretty scary. This is Unison, the union. Most affected will be women and young people. That's Unison. Then we've got UK government as a source stating mid to high income professionals will also be severely impacted. And then we got here Unison coming back with most jobs won't be eliminated but changed with AI. That meaning the handling of tasks will free humans for higher value tasks. I'm not too sure about that, because that comes back to those other higher value tasks will in turn be taken over by AI. So fast is the pace of development. And then here's a corker for you. AI will create new jobs, which, I quote, can't yet be predicted. So that's trying to appease the masses as to what's coming up. Stated here, AI is a major disruptor. So I'm trying to be more positive here, but also an accelerator for the UK economy. And that's coming from the Access Group. And then we have here, estimated, this is quite scary, estimated job losses of low skilled jobs only at this stage, up to 2030 in the UK, 3 million. However, we have the Tony Blair Institute stating there will only be 30,000 job losses by 2030. My own interpretation of that is common sense tells me the Tony Blair Institute has got it completely wrong. And I could spend all day going on about why I think that, but we don't have time to go there at this moment in time. Just focusing in on those jobs that are forecast to be lost by 2030. So this is the list, initial list, 2030 job losses lost to AI. Telemarketers, receptionists, customer services representatives, accounting assistants, retail cashiers, truck and taxi drivers, proofreaders and translators. So that will be amongst the first wave of job losses by 2030, which will either be 3 million, or if you're more optimistic and you believe what Tony Blair Institute says, only 30,000 job losses. I think common sense tells us which direction that's going to be going. Then jobs becoming obsolete within 5 years, another list here: postal service clerks, bank tellers. Well, we've seen that already with all the high street banks, or most of the high street banks being closed down. Data entry clerks, they're going to be hit hard. Retail cashiers and ticket clerks, administrative assistants and executive secretaries, printing and related trade workers, accounting, bookkeeping and payroll clerks. So up to 50% of truck drivers and taxi drivers will be displaced by AI over the next decade. Lorry drivers, particularly hit hardest, will be the long distance lorry drivers, who once you hit the motorway, it's just automated straight down the motorway until you get to the other end. That particular area is going to be really hard hit. So that's a quick overview there of what's coming down the line. And again here, we've got the here and now situation, AI impact on jobs. So I can quote you 3 scenarios that have been looked at by the government. The worst case scenario is full displacement theory, which is 1.5, different figures we've got here, 1.5 million jobs are lost, with GP experiencing no gains. That's the worst case scenario. The middle scenario is 545,000 jobs lost, with GP gains of 3.1%, equating to £64 billion per year. The absolute best case scenario is full augmentation, as they describe it, with no jobs are lost, with GDP gains of 4%, £92 billion yearly. Well, I think we can write off the best case scenario. That's not going to happen, and we can see that already through our own personal experiences. So I'll give my own little anecdote here of my interface with AI. Last year, I looked at Trading 212 company, investment company, looking at buying one of their ISAs, and I opened up an account. And then I discovered some things about Trading 212 that I wasn't convinced about. So I decided I wanted to cancel that ISA and transfer it back into my Barclays ISA. Once I'd opened up the account, a mistake was made whereby Barclays transferred my ISA amount into the Trading 212 account. So I thought, simple, I'll just contact Trading 212, phone them up and get the money transferred back. No phone number to contact, and I was funneled down the route of dealing with an AI robot Q&A session, and I gave the instruction, the command, cancel my ISA with you and transfer the money back to Barclays. It couldn't be simpler in terms of instructions. The response was, it pumped up straight away: I do not understand your question. please can you reword? So I did it again. It came back up. I do not understand your question. Please can you reword? I went through this procedure 4 times before I blew up. And still to this day, although I had the main bulk of my money transferred back to my Barclays ISA, I've got sitting interest in Trading 212, 50 quid. And no matter what I do, I can't find a telephone number and I can't give any instructions to have that small amount of money, as originally instructed, to be transferred back into my Barclays account. This means it's as if these big organisations, these big companies, have deliberately put up a wall to make it as difficult and as inconvenient as possible for us, Joe Public out here, to try and contact them with questions and giving them instructions on what you want to happen. It's getting increasingly difficult, and it's going to get worse as this entire procedure, laughingly called customer relations, which is now moving heavily down the route of AI robots, providing you with automated answers. And you ask the questions, and in most cases, it doesn't even respond to the specific question that you've raised. That is happening. A lot of you out there watching this will have already experienced this yourselves. And certainly this is just one anecdote that I can give. There's lots of others I could give where this type of situation has been happening, but we don't have the time to go through that today. What I would say is, the way things are going with all these job losses, I would arrive at the conclusion that we're going to need government intervention to lay down guide rules on what can and cannot happen. Because, as we've discussed, common sense, AI is going to lead to millions of job losses in the UK and globally. And what that does, that ultimately takes us onto the area of what will happen. For example, in the UK, let's say by 2030, we've got 3 million people who've lost their jobs to AI. What are those 3 million people supposed to do with their extra 48 hours a week? How are they supposed to earn money to support their families, to pay their mortgages, to go on holiday once a year, which isn't expecting too much? What will happen to them? How will they be paid? How will this all be financed? Because to take 3 million workers out of the market seriously impacts the buying power of the people in the economy. This leads on to the question of how do you keep this economy moving? The cycle's broken. 3 million people unemployed, not earning a penny. Are they all going to be on benefits? If they're all going to be on benefits, where is that money going to come from? Because there will be increasingly less and less people working in the real world generating taxes to pay for the benefits. Ultimately, this would obviously lead on to social unrest, and then we've got serious problems because people out there will not be prepared to accept it. I don't know the way this is going to pan out. I would think possibly what may happen as we get 3 million people unemployed, the economy undergoes a seismic shift in how it functions, and people rendered unemployed, on benefits or whatever, what they will do will be channeled into charity work or community work, whereby they go out into the community and they do good deeds, for want of a better description, helping out retired people, old age pensioners, the sick, community projects, and in turn they are given tokens, not actual cash, tokens that enable them to trade or pay, for want of a better description, for goods, commodities and food. That's the only way I can see this actually panning out. But as I say, this is just an initial overview, looking at what's being said by the movers and the shakers, various organisations, and as I said initially, over the coming weeks, we'll drill down into this in more detail to find out how it might all pan out. And as I say, if the AI is developing at a super fast rate, and once we get to the stage of moving from AI to SI, which is super intelligence, for most of the population globally, it seems to me as though it's going to be game up. But let's see over the coming weeks if a more optimistic picture can begin to emerge and it's not all doom and gloom, which I sincerely hope is going to be the situation. We will see.